While Nedbank's full-year diluted headline earnings per share jumped 25% to 1,340 cents, South Africa's fourth largest lender posted an 8.6% increase, that in net interest income to 18 billion rand. Nedbank expects 2012 non-interest revenue to grow at low double digits, with expenses to see single-digit growth. Well, Simon, it looks as though the turnaround story for Nedbank is clearly on track. The market celebrating the results, although they weren't too keen on that bad debt line, impairments not coming down as dramatically as they would like to have seen. Would that be a fair comment?
It would, and certainly the market liked it. Nedbank at 11-year highs, and I think that tells the story. Standard Bank just off all-time highs, first rand all-time high earlier this week. Nedbank, we got to go back 11 years before they were at this level. They had a tough decade. The impairment number, absolutely. Their target is 0.6 to 1%. For the group as a whole. They're not yet there, but certainly what we've seen, I suppose, to get that first improvement impairment is easy. It gets harder and harder and harder as it goes on. And I got to say, these were really good numbers, better than I was looking for, a lot of positive to bring from it. Impairment probably the only number in there that you could say, something that's not happening. And their cost to income. I don't know if we're ever going to get back to the low 50s, but certainly it looks like in the short term.
I didn't mean to start on the negative. Of course, a great set of results, and as you say, an 11-year high on Nedbank's share price. Moxima, let's throw it to you at this point. Technically, what are we seeing and where are we going from here, considering we hit that 11-year high today?
Right, still very bullish. I agree with you, with Simon, on the momentum here. It did form a bit of a symmetrical triangle as it consolidated, broke out and confirmed a positive breakout above 144.95. Our concern is that the RSI is a bit overextended, and if it does bridge that secondary support trend line, we do see downside to the major support trend line. But that shouldn't at least trigger any alarm bells. In fact, it's a time for people to actually just pick up, because it would just merely be Nedbank taking a breather from that surge off from its breakout. So after that RSI correction, we do see it resuming its bull trend, at least fulfilling that target of the symmetrical triangle at 173. So there's still more upside for Nedbank.
Still more upside technically for Nedbank. Do you think we should be buying the stock at these levels?
The bank sector as a whole is looking really, really strong. If we go back to 2011, the market was driven, well, nowhere. We went flat for the year. It was industrials that really were storming. Beginning of this year, again, it was industrials, all the highs there. Banks lagging and resources very much lagging. Banks have started to come to the fore, and that's been driven by three top set of results. We've got Standard Bank due next week. They're likely to also deliver really, really good numbers, but the banks are looking strong, and I think there's an opportunity here. We've had some really, really tough time being a banker or a shareholder in a bank, and I think finally it looks like the banks are not just out of the woods, but they're starting to do what they do best, which is lend money, get their non-interest revenues growing, and ultimately make profit.
You'd have to assume then that the South African consumer is also out of the woods. Are you ready to say that?
The South African consumer is there. They're spending. We saw some data out today that wasn't as strong as many would have liked, but certainly they're there. And part of that spending, make no mistake, is unsecured lending, and of course that just brings back all the horrors of 2008, and you know, a bubble forming there. We probably have got a bubble forming there, but it's going to be a long time before that bubble pops. So I think there's still space for the consumer there.
Non-interest revenue, the market really celebrating that number, up over 16%. That was unexpected. You were touching on it earlier.
It was unexpected, and non-interest revenue is a bit of a double-edged sword. In the one sense, it's fees and penalties, and people out there, clients of these banks out there, are saying, hang on a minute, that's what I get charged every month in my bill. But the flip side, it's also commissions and the like, and those sort of products. And it's where banks we've seen a lot of focus there. Lending's not as strong as it was. It's growing, it's happening, but not as strong. So the traditional way of bankers making money, which is borrow a bit and lend at a slightly better rate, it's not doing as well. So non-interest revenue, we've seen it across the board from the banks, but from Nedbank, that probably was to me one of the big standouts. That and the fact that they aggressively employing people, which is contrary to what Absa and Standard Bank have been doing, although we'll see in their numbers next week.
Moxima, anything else on the technical front for Nedbank?
No, just for the near term that there could be that pullback, but like I said, it's a time to pick up and add more Nedbanks, because this uptrend is there to at least last for the short, or at least near term, short term.
What about Africa strategy? Do you think they're going to be aggressively pursuing this Africa strategy?
Africa is critically important, and all the banks have taken. I think Standard Bank's by far been the most aggressive there, and oddly enough, we're seeing the least from it. The ICBC deal with China, which is now almost 4 years old, we've seen practically nothing flow from that in that space. With FMBs interested but not doing much there. Africa is going to be important. I don't think they should be too aggressive. I think EcoBank was a good partnership and was working for them. You don't want to go too aggressively into it. It's often people look at Africa and say, brilliant, billion customers, ex-Russian, and make it happen. And I think you need to tread carefully. It's 53 different jurisdictions and markets there. I think partnerships are the way to go.
EcoBank is an existing partnership.
It's an existing partnership there, and they can look to boost it up. They can take, at the moment it's as hands off, they work together. They can take a potential
almost,
JV.
and you like that strategy for Africa?
They can take a 20% equity ownership, and I think they will push that equity ownership up over time. And I think that's the way they're going to drive their Africa strategy. And I like it because it's an established bank on the ground.
Nedbank being a potential target that has been on the cards for so long. We know that Old Mutual would willingly give it up for the right price. What do you think is going to happen on that front?
I think that, we know that there were people, it was 2 years ago, HSBC had a look, said thanks, but no thanks. And in truth, the buyers were probably in tough positions. I think this makes Nedbank a significantly more attractive looking target. We know Old Mutual wants to get rid of them and take the money. I think when you look at Nedbank at this and you see that they're starting to move into Africa, you see a strong set of numbers in their home territory. I think suddenly Nedbank is a very, very attractive proposition. The problem is 51%. Do you want more? Will the Reserve Bank allow it? I don't think so. You're going to have to kind of do an Absa Barclay deal where you take a majority stake but not a complete listing.
It sounds as though this is going to be hot in your book. So if I put the question hot or not, where are you going?
It's hot. I got to say, I think first round probably shaded it. It's certainly, I think, a lot better than the Absa numbers. Standard Bank we'll see next week. But I think these are good numbers from a bank which I have to say has languished for a decade. And a bank, when I've said to people, should I buy a bank? I've said yes, just not Nedbank. Finally, I think we can say yes, Nedbank's on that list.
Moxima, hot or not from a technical?
Definitely hot. The symmetrical triangle should assist it to at least gain more upside momentum, so it's a hot on a technical side.